When my mom Hannah, 52, showed up at my uncle's house for what was supposed to be a peaceful family dinner, nobody expected our family business feud to blow up in front of everyone. What started a small talk turned into a shouting match, secrets exposed, and my mom being humiliated in front of the entire family. The tension had been building for years, and it finally snapped. So this all went down a few weeks ago, and honestly, I'm still shaking thinking about it. For context, my mom Hannah, 52, has been running part of our family business, a small chain of furniture stores, with her younger brother Mark, 49. My uncle Mark is, let's just say, not the most honest guy. He's slick, always has some brilliant idea that usually ends with him benefiting and my mom cleaning up the mess. Their home visit started innocent enough. We were invited to my Aunt Linda's house, Mark's wife, for a Sunday dinner. The whole family was there. My grandma, who started the business back in the 80s, my cousin Rachel, 26, Mark's daughter, me, and of course my mom. When we walked in, everything looked picture perfect. The table was set, the smell of roasted chicken in the air, wine glasses already poured. My aunt hugged us, pretending like she didn't just text my mom last week saying, "Maybe you should step back from the business, it's too stressful for you." That was the first red flag. At first, things were fine. We chatted about random stuff, work, kids, even the weather. But then Mark just had to bring up the business. He leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine like some CEO, and said, "Hannah, I've been thinking maybe it's time you let me take over the finances completely. You've been overwhelmed lately, don't you think?" My mom froze. I could see the colour rising in her cheeks. "Overwhelmed?" she repeated slowly. "Mark, I've been the one keeping the books balanced while you've been off networking at golf courses." Rachel immediately jumped in, siding with her dad. "Come on, Aunt Hannah, that's just better with money. You're too emotional when it comes to business." That's when my mom's foot clinked against her plate. She set it down carefully, like she was containing herself. "Too emotional, Rachel. Do you even know how many times I stayed up until 3 a.m. fixing invoices your father forgot to file?" The air got heavy. Even my grandma, who usually tries to calm things down, stayed quiet. And then the bomb. Mark smirked and said, "Well, maybe if you hadn't messed up the Springfield contract, we wouldn't be in this mess. Everyone knows you dropped the ball on that." I swear, the room went dead silent. My mom's face turned pale. Because here's the thing, she didn't mess up the contract. Mark did. And he knew it. But the way he said it, with everyone listening, it made her look incompetent. My mom's hand shook as she tried to explain, but Mark cut her off again, louder this time, making it sound like fact. Aunt Linda nodded, Rachel rolled her eyes, and suddenly it was like everyone was against her. And I just sat there, feeling my stomach twist, watching my mom being humiliated in front of the people who should have had her back. That was only the beginning. I wish I could say my mom just brushed it off, but that's not who she is. Hannah's tough, and when she's cornered, she fights back. She straightened up in her chair, her voice firm but shaky slightly. "Don't you dare put that on me, Mark. You were the one who forgot to send the final documents. I had to call the client myself to fix your mess." Mark laughed, actually laughed, like she just said something ridiculous. "Oh please. Everyone knows you panic when things get complicated. I've had to smooth things over more times than I can count." That's when Grandma finally spoke. "Mark, enough," she said, her voice sharp. But Mark didn't stop. If anything, he doubled down. "Mom, you don't see it because Hannah hides it. Well, she's too emotional to handle business. That's why I've been stepping up, and maybe it's time we all admit it." My mom's face flushed bright red. "Stepping up? Is that what you call secretly opening a separate account for company money without telling me? Because I found the bank statement, Mark." The whole room gasped. Aunt Linda's fork literally froze midair. Rachel's jaw dropped. Mark's eyes flicked to my mom, and I swear for half a second he panicked, but then he smirked again. "You misunderstood. That account was for tax purposes. You wouldn't understand." "Wouldn't understand?" My mom snapped, slamming her hand on the table so hard the wine glasses rattled. "I've been running this business with Mom since before you even graduated high school. I know exactly what I saw. You were hiding money." Aunt Linda finally jumped in, her voice sharp. "Hannah, this is not the time to air dirty laundry." My mom whipped her head toward her. "Oh, so it's fine for Mark to humiliate me at the dinner table, but when I defend myself, suddenly it's inappropriate." Rachel muttered under her breath, "This is why Dad should be in charge." And that's when I lost it. "Rachel, shut up. You have no idea what goes into running that business. All you see is your dad bragging about deals, while my mom is the one cleaning up after him." The room exploded into overlapping voices. Aunt Linda scolding me, Rachel firing back, Mark raising his voice over everyone else. Grandma banged her hand on the table, yelling enough, but no one listened. And then Mark delivered the dagger. He stood up, towering over the table, and said, "Hannah, everyone knows you're unstable. You've always been a weak link. That's why Dad never wanted you running things in the first place." I swear, I felt the air get sucked out of the room. My mom went completely still, her hand frozen on her napkin. Her eyes glossed over, but she blinked hard like she wasn't going to let him see her cry. It was the cruelest, lowest blow he could have thrown. And he knew it. That's when I realized this wasn't just about business anymore. This was about pride, power, and years of resentment bubbling up. And my mom? She wasn't going to let this slide. For a few seconds, the room was dead silent. You could hear the faint tick of the wall clock and the soft hum of the refrigerator. Everyone was frozen, waiting for my mom to crumble, but she didn't. Hannah took a deep breath, chest rising and falling, like she was drawing in every ounce of patience she had left. Then, she stood up. The chest scraped loudly against the floor, echoing like a gunshot. "Mark," she said slowly, her voice cold now, "you think you can humiliate me in front of the family and walk away unscathed? Let me remind you who's been keeping this business afloat while you were busy pretending to be a CEO." Mark's smirk faltered, just for a split second. "Hannah." "No," she cut him off, her eyes blazing. "You listen. You opened a separate account to siphon company funds. I have copies of every transaction, every invoice, every lie you've tried to hide from me, and tonight, in front of everyone, I'm done letting you gaslight me." Aunt Linda gasped, Rachel's mouth open and closed like a fish, and Grandma sat forward, gripping the edge of the table. Hannah, she tried, but my mom held up a hand. "No, I'm tired of the whispers, the eye rolls, the fake smiles while you belittle me. This is our family business. I built it alongside Dad, and I will not let you write history." Mark laughed nervously, trying to regain control. You're exaggerating. This isn't about you. It's about making the business better. Better? My mom shouted. Better for who? You, because all I see is you lining your pockets while trying to make me look incompetent, and I'm done. Everyone here knows it now. She tossed a folder on the table. Papers fanned out like a weapon. In bold letters, you could see bank statements, emails, and transaction records proving Mark's deception. Rachel's face went pale, and Linda's hand flew to her mouth. This isn't gossip, this isn't drama, these are facts, and if anyone here thinks I'm unstable or incompetent, I suggest you take a hard look at the truth instead of blindly siding with him. Mark's face turned red. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. My mom stepped closer, pointing at him with the folder like a sword. You humiliated me, lied to everyone, and tried to make me feel small. Well, congratulations, Mark, you just revealed the real you to the entire family. For a moment, even the air seemed to hold its breath. Grandma's eyes softened, finally acknowledging my mom's courage. Rachel looked like she wanted to disappear under the table. Aunt Linda whispered something about control, but the tension was now completely flipped. My mom had the upper hand. And then, Hannah sat down, calm but victorious. The room stayed silent for a long beat. Mark didn't have a comeback. He looked like he'd been caught, truly caught, and maybe for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. My mom had turned the tables, and the humiliation. It wasn't hers anymore, it was his. After my mom dropped that folder on the table, the room felt like it was vibrating with tension. Mark's face went from red to pale, like someone had sucked all the colour out of him. He opened his mouth a few times, trying to form a sentence, but nothing came out that wasn't weak or stammered. Aunt Linda, who usually plays the peacekeeper, was fumbling with the napkins, looking like she wanted to sweep all the papers off the table and pretend none of this happened. But Grandma leaned forward, her eyes sharp and commanding. Mark, enough. Hannah has spoken the truth, and I think it's about time we acknowledge it. Mark's lips tightened. Mom, you can't just do. I can, and I did. My mom snapped, cutting him off again. I've carried this family business for years while you hid mistakes, skimmed funds, and tried to make me look like the weak link. Rachel finally spoke up, hesitating, but her voice was shaky. Dad, is this true? Yes, Rachel, my mom said quietly but firmly. Everything in this folder is real. I've been silent for too long, hoping you'd see the truth eventually. You need to know your father isn't flawless, and I'm not weak. Mark's face twisted into frustration, then desperation. He tried to laugh it off, but it sounded forced, brutal. Hannah, this is humiliating. You're turning a simple family dinner into a spectacle. Oh, Mark, you've been humiliating me for years, subtly and not so subtly, she replied. This is just catching up with you. At that moment, the tension reached a boiling point. Mark grabbed the folder from the table, shoving it into his briefcase as if confiscating evidence could erase what everyone had just seen. But the damage was done. Rachel was staring at him with wide eyes, and Linda had her hands on her face, and Grandma's gaze was both proud and disappointed. Mark tried one last attempt to regain control. Hannah, let's just settle this privately. Don't drag everyone into this. Settle privately, my mom said, her voice cold as ice. After years of being undermined and belittled, I don't negotiate in private anymore. The family deserves to see the truth. You can't keep hiding behind your charm while throwing me under the bus. For the first time, Mark looked genuinely afraid. His usual smug confidence was gone, replaced by panicked tension. Aunt Linda tried muttering something soothing, but it had no effect. My mom's eyes locked on his, unwavering. There was a long pause where everyone just absorbed the reality of the situation. The man who had spent years making my mom feel small was now the one shrinking under the weight of exposure. Finally, Mark muttered something about needing a moment to think and stormed out of the room. The door slammed so hard it rattled the windows. The silence that followed was deafening. My mom sat back, hands resting on the table, chest heaving. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. But there was a calm, quite triumph in her posture that spoke louder than any words could. And for the first time that night, humiliation once hers was fully his. After Mark stormed out, the room felt oddly quiet. For a few seconds, it was almost peaceful, like everyone was catching their breath. But then reality settled in, and the family's reactions began to surface. Grandma was the first to speak, her voice firm but soft. Hannah, I'm proud of you. It took a lot of courage to stand up like that. Her eyes glistened slightly, and I could see the pride radiating from her. She'd always been the backbone of the business, but she rarely openly acknowledged my mom's efforts. Aunt Linda finally exhaled and muttered, well, I guess we all saw the truth tonight. She looked conflicted, clearly trying to reconcile years of protecting Mark with reality staring her in the face. She glanced at Rachel, who seemed frozen in shock. Rachel finally spoke, voice shaky but honest. Mom, I didn't realize, I always thought Dad was right about some things, but seeing this I see now. You've been working so hard, and he was lying. My mom nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile tugging at her lips. Thank you, Rachel. I know it's hard to see the whole picture when you're young and caught between loyalties, but I need you to know the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. I could feel the weight in the room shift. The humiliation that had been hanging over my mom all evening had completely inverted. She wasn't the one being embarrassed anymore, Mark was, and the rest of the family finally saw it. Then Grandma spoke again, her voice shot this time. Mark has been trying to rewrite history for too long. It's time we rethink how this business is run. No more secrets. No more lies. Aunt Linda hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. I agree. Things have been messy for too long, Hannah. Maybe it's time you take more control officially. Rachel's eyes widened. Mom, are you serious? Yes, my mom said, resolutely. I've been managing the business behind the scenes for years. It's time I have the authority that matches the work I've been doing all along. Even I felt a rush of relief and admiration. After years of seeing her undermined and dismissed, she was finally taking her rightful place. There was a long pause. The tension was still there, yes, but it had shifted. Now, the family had to confront the reality that Mark could no longer hide behind his charm and authority. My mom leaned back in her chair, looking at everyone. Calm, composed, but undeniably powerful. The humiliation she had suffered earlier was completely gone. It was Mark who was now exposed. And while the aftermath would be messy, one thing was clear, the balance had shifted. The family business would never be the same, and my mom had emerged victorious, finally recognised for the hard work and dedication she'd poured into it for decades. For the first time in years, it felt like justice, and everyone at the table could feel it. The next morning, I expected some awkwardness, maybe a few tense glances, but Mark had other plans. He called a family meeting at the office, insisting it was urgent and critical for the future of the business. My mom agreed to attend, mostly to keep an eye on him and make sure he didn't pull anything shady. When we arrived, Mark was pacing back and forth, red-faced, trying to appear authoritative. My mom stayed calm, arms crossed, watching him like a hawk. "Hannah, we need to talk about last night," Mark started, voice first. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. That's unacceptable. I think maybe you're letting emotions get in the way of the business." My mom's eyebrows shot up. "Unacceptable, Mark. Do you even realize what you've done? Do you realize how many times you've hidden money, lied to the board, and tried to make me look incompetent?" That's different," he stammered, glaring at her. "Different," she repeated, stepping closer. "You're not running from responsibility, Mark. You're just trying to gaslight everyone, including yourself, but no one's falling for it anymore." He sighed, rubbing his temples, clearly frustrated that his usual tactics weren't working. "Fine, but if we're going to move forward, we need to agree on a clear hierarchy. We can't have this fighting in front of clients or employees." "Hierarchy?" My mom scoffed. "You mean where you pretend to be in charge while secretly lying to cover your mistakes?" At that moment, the office door opened and Grandma stepped in. She had been listening from the hallway. "Enough, both of you," she said, voice firm. "Mark, it's time you accept the truth. Hannah has been running things efficiently for years. You've been hiding behind your ego and lies, and it ends now." Mark opened his mouth, but she silenced him with a sharp look. My mom turned to him, her voice calm but deadly serious. "Mark, I'm not asking for your permission anymore. Effective immediately, I'm taking over the financial management and client relations. You will report to me, and any attempt to bypass me will be documented. Understood?" He froze, realizing he had lost. This wasn't a discussion anymore, it was a fait accompli. After a long pause, he muttered, "Fine, but this isn't over." My mom didn't respond. She just stood there, composed, holding her ground. The finality in her tone left no room for negotiation. Branwell nodded at her. "Good, finally, the business is in the hands of someone competent." And just like that, Mark's desperation and bravado crumbled. The humiliation of being exposed publicly had already shifted the family's perception, and now the corporate hierarchy reflected the truth. My mom had claimed her position not through threats or intimidation, but through evidence, courage, and unwavering composure. As we left the office that day, I could see quiet confidence in her stride. She didn't gloat, she didn't celebrate loudly, but there was a sense of vindication, a calm power that made it clear Hannah had won. And Mark? Well, he would have to figure out how to live with the consequences. By the end of that week, the family had started adjusting to the new reality. The tension from the dinner and the office confrontation hadn't completely vanished, but something fundamental had shifted. My mom, Hannah, was no longer the one everyone whispered about behind closed doors. She was the authority, the decision maker, and finally, the respected backbone of the family business. At the next Sunday dinner, the atmosphere was cautiously calm. Aunt Linda had prepared the meal as usual, but there were fewer fake smiles and more genuine acknowledgement. Grandma sat at the head of the table, giving my mom a subtle nod that spoke volumes. Rachel was beaming at my mom, clearly proud for the first time in years. Mark, on the other hand, was tense. He kept fiddling with his napkin, clearly aware that his usual dominance had been stripped away. But he didn't speak much, knowing better than to start another argument in front of everyone. The humiliation he'd suffered was still fresh. Finally, my mom spoke, her tone calm but warm. "I know last week was intense, and I know things have been messy for years, but I want us to move forward as a family together, honestly and with transparency. That means no more secrets, no more hidden accounts, and no more undermining each other." Grandma smiled faintly. "About time someone said that." Rachel chimed in, clearly relieved. "Mom, I just want you to know I get it now. I see how much you've done for this family and this business. I'm proud of you." Even Aunt Linda, after a deep sigh, nodded in agreement. "You've proven yourself, Hannah. I think we all needed to see that." Mark's face twisted, somewhere between guilt and stubbornness, but he didn't interrupt. He had no words that could undo the evidence, the confrontation, or the clear shift in the family's respect. The rest of the evening passed with a cautious sense of normalcy. Conversations about business were tempered with respect, and while Mark was still present, it was obvious that his influence had waned. My mom's authority was no longer questioned, and the public humiliation that had once hung over her was completely inverted. Later that night, after everyone had left, I found my mom in the kitchen, quietly wiping down the counters. She looked tired, but there was a light in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. "You were incredible tonight," I said softly. She smiled, a little wryly. "It wasn't easy, but it had to be done. They needed to see the truth. I've carried this family business for decades. It's about time everyone else recognized it." I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. For once, my mom had taken control not just of the business, but of her dignity and respect. The humiliation, the lies, the undermining all of it had been confronted head-on, and she came out stronger than ever. As we left the kitchen, I realized the family dynamics would always be complicated, but some battles, especially the ones fought with courage and truth, could finally set things right. And in that moment, I knew my mom's victory wasn't just professional, it was personal, and it was complete. For the first time in years, Hannah wasn't just surviving. She was thriving.